Hello, welcome to the first It's a Frankly Harry podcast of 2026. I'm your host with the most. I don't know if they still say that term, host with the most, anymore. I'm definitely your host with the most hair, Frank Weber. So glad you could join me in the forest this week. I have a number of intriguing things to talk about, and so glad that you could join me to kick off this new year. The holidays are finally over, and things are slowly starting to get back to normal. I don't know that that's necessarily always a good thing, but the things I'm going to talk about today are kind of interrelated, and I'm glad that you're here to listen to them and can't wait to talk about them. Starting off today, kind of making a continuation of sorts from the show last week, which was my New Year's show. I actually read a couple of things after I recorded that show and I don't want to contradict myself in terms of what I was saying, but basically I gave the act of doing resolutions a certain amount of props last week. I don't think it's always the best thing to do, and you can certainly make resolutions and make changes, or just make new goals, new dreams as they arise at any time of the year whenever a change needs to be made. So it's not always has to be done at New Year's. But I ran across a couple of articles that I found inspiring, and while we can put together, whether you call them resolutions or goals or dreams or initiatives or whatever they happen to be, whatever you happen to call them, that's great. Everybody needs to have something to work toward. But I think a lot of times a good goal or resolution, whatever you want to call it, is to just be. Just the act of being who you are, being yourself, relaxing, knowing that you mean a lot to other people, and you are contributing to their lives and hopefully to society in some meaningful way of just being. And that's something that I think, and I was moved so much by it, by the way. I don't always get moved, but I consider myself to be something of an alpha male. But that's kind of become my overarching theme for 2026 after I read those things. And I just want to be, there's a lot of pressure out there in the world to perform, whether it's to someone else's standards or even to your own standards. And sometimes we get carried away trying to reach certain goals and dreams when, in fact, they obviously have to be worked toward, and a lot of them are a process, but in a sense, you just simply have to believe that they are already there and done, and they are going to come to fruition at some point, whether it's in today or tomorrow or later in 2026 or some other year. As many of you know, I had to get out of dentistry and study a new field, which is financial planning and general business, Master of Business Administration. And I just started that a year ago. It's already been a year that went by fast, and only have a year left. And so the process of things can go by pretty fast sometimes, but I do feel like that's a real problem with me, and I think if people admitted it about themselves, I think it would be an issue with their lives as well, about being able to just sit still and just be, know who you are in relation to God. I always try to bring Christian themes into this show, and find activities where you can be yourself, hopefully in an environment free of judgment. Of course, a lot of people probably won't tell you certain things because they're afraid to speak out, in judgment, but hopefully they're open-minded and they're allowing you to be yourself, because we do have an issue in this world these days about people thinking they just make assumptions about who other people are, and then they make assumptions about who they should be. And so again, I'm going to do my best to try and just be this year, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that as the show goes on here today. So hopefully that wet your whistle a little bit. There's another phrase that doesn't get used much anymore. But something that I did not realize until I stepped into the gym on New Year's Day. I've been there last Thursday, which was, of course, New Year's Day, January 1, and then I was there again on Saturday. And in all the holiday hubbub and whatnot, I had forgotten that, of course, now that it's January, there's going to be a lot of extra people at the gym. And they're probably have a goal of losing weight and getting in shape, and I'm all for that. I think they should do that. But the fact of the matter is it's going to be really busy there, probably during most of the day. I'm not sure if there's going to be a better time to go, because I try to go 3 or 4 times a week, and usually it's at peak hour after work. But there's going to be a lot more people there the next few weeks. And then it'll slowly kind of drop off and wane and get back to normal. And that's great for the owners. Very pleased for Kurt and Audrey, who own the gym I go to. But it's not so great for the folks like me who have been going for 6 years and try to go regularly and even almost religiously to go there and feel better and get into shape. And so I'm seeing a lot of people already that I haven't seen there before. And in fact, I've even seen some people who, just like I remember a couple of girls, because I always remember the women for some reason, just the way that I am. But there's a couple of them that I haven't seen in a while, and then they would just kind of show up. I don't know, maybe they were going at a different time or something. But yeah, like there was one there the other day who looks kind of like a model, I think. But she, like a lot of people that I see there, they're on their phones a lot. They take breaks between sets to look at their phones, and then they wind up hogging machines. And some of the machines are very popular and hard to get onto, especially the leg machines and the lat pull down, sometimes the bench press and everything, which is another issue in society. People do several sets and they just like sit there on the bench, and you want to use the machine. And I don't know, that happens at every gym now. But getting back to the women, then there was another girl who's kind of petite, who I think lives in my neighborhood somewhere, but then I haven't seen her a lot lately. But anyway, I do, and I have another story though, actually. I'm talking a lot about gym. I meant to talk about the gym more as far as not only is it busier in January, but as far as gym culture, because I think that of all the places that people can go and frequent, it seems very difficult. That seems like the kind of place where there should be a community, more of a community and more of a potential for relationships than there actually is. And people will say, like, well, it's because people are vulnerable and they're working out and they're doing me time, and that's why they don't, necessarily want to have, start conversations, and they only have so much time. They don't want to start conversations. They don't want to give you the time of day or whatever. Although I've said that if you join a class, it's more likely that you're going to find conversation and maybe a little bit more of a camaraderie and relationship than you would if you're just out there by yourself. Unfortunately, the classes a lot of times are tailored toward women. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You do get a great workout, but some guys may be a little shy or intimidated about getting into a class with all women, even though that would be great for a sense of community. But anyway, that's that's one commentary I have on gym culture. The other one is that the word gym or gymnasium, the root word gymno means naked, because they back in the ancient Greek and Roman times, people used to work out naked because there wasn't any really point of wearing clothes and sweating out your clothes, and a lot of people didn't have a lot of clothes to their name, so they worked out naked, and it was about what the body looked like and improving the body's appearance and shape, and that's disappeared over the years. Kind of sad. And of course, I've given a lot of commentaries on that over the years. Clothing, of course, by the way, if this is another thing that some of you may not have realized, but it is one means of separation between us and God. And this is God's temple, and it should be healthily displayed. And I know there's some trouble out there and people out there who are perverse and trying to exploit, things and what have you. But this is coming from an entirely different perspective, the frank perspective, and I think a godly perspective at that matter. And so one thing I did want to tell you real quick, just as far as the sign of times, I was working out on a machine the other day. This was the Saturday workout, and this was the tricep machine where you sit. There's two different exercises that are used on this machine. This is the works your arms. Like, I think it mainly works if you're sitting forward on the machine and you are pushing forward and in, it works your biceps. I think it largely works your biceps and maybe your shoulders and things like that. But you can adjust it to work the other way. So if you sit the other way, you're actually pulling you're pulling out and backwards, and that actually works your triceps. And in my 6 years of being a gym member, I have never experienced this before, but I did my first flex and pulled back on the machine, and some guy just ran into my arm because he was walking between the machines. And I think he was like a Canyon High baseball coach or something like that. I seen him there a lot because he's usually wearing a shirt like that. And he says like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. It's totally my fault." And then he kind of just picked up and went on to wherever he was going. I think he left the gym after that. I don't know. It was the weirdest thing. I have never seen anybody do that. And I just chalk it up to like people not paying attention in the world. And that concerns me, of course, nowadays with these crowded gyms during January. But then I've also seen, as many of you know, and you've heard me rant on this show before about traffic issues. I've seen in the last couple of weeks in the area just near the gym, actually, I saw some guy speed up through a stop sign so he could get through an intersection before I got to the intersection. And and I'm not just talking about this in terms of being illegal, but I think that this is an attitude problem. I mean, it's a selfish problem, but it's also just in general an attitude problem. And then in my way back from the gym on Saturday, there's a stop sign right there at the intersection. It's located on a farm to market road, and then I'm coming from one way, and then people are coming from the other way, where they have an opportunity to turn right or turn left onto the farm to market road. And before I get to the intersection, there's a guy who just kind of nonchalantly goes through the stop sign with, driving his girlfriend around and stuff, like no big deal. I wish people would kind of slow down and pay attention a little bit better. This is where I'm getting with all this, pay attention. It's a respect issue, it's an attitude issue, but it's also just a pay attention issue. Same thing with sitting on the machines and looking at your hand and looking at your phone when somebody else wants to use the machine at the gym. I actually saw something a couple of weeks ago, right before Christmas. I went to Walmart, and somebody had hit a pigeon in the Walmart parking lot. and I've talked about this on the show before. I see a lot of mostly dead squirrels, but sometimes dead birds on the streets out here in Canyon, and I can't figure out for the life of me what people are doing. I guess they're speeding so fast and they're in a hurry and they don't care anymore, and that they're willing to just go through and over whatever they need to get where they're going. And it's very sad. And my prayer is not only to be this year, for everybody to be who they are and to take it easy and pay attention and slow down and everything, but to get to a sense of decency and normalcy back on the roads again. Because I know my audience out there doesn't want to hear me give rants on traffic and crazy behavior that exists out there. I know you don't want that, but I will continue to do that on occasion until things change. Anyway, going back to the coach who ran into me, it may very well have been an honest mistake, and I'm not trying to judge him or put him out there or anything, embarrass him or what have you, but it's been a weird situation so far. January at the gym. One last thing I will say before moving on to the final topic and sharing some of my goals and resolutions or whatever you have for the year. The other thing that I always find weird, though, is at the gym, outside of course, greeting the employees who work at the front desk. It was usually our college girls. I kind of wish people would be just in general a little bit friendlier in the environment, even if they don't really meet and talk to people. Like, I like to say hi to people and maybe even hi, how are you? But if you say that to like some random chick who doesn't know you, she'll just kind of look at you and stare at you. She usually doesn't reciprocate. And I always wonder what that's about as well. And I just think that it would be, and of course it doesn't have to be a chick. I mean, I guess you could, occasionally see people I know there, and then we have conversations, and it's a little bit different. But just like a better general friendliness would be nice there. I don't know. I'm kind of wondering what you, the audience, are thinking right now. If I'm not wise to the ways of the world as they currently are, and I'm just wanting something that's pie in the sky, or if maybe you're actually nodding your head in agreement with me. I don't know, because I can't see you, but anyway, I just think we could do better for some reason on a lot of gym behavior and gym culture than we do, than we have in recent times. It's all about improving everybody's quality of life and helping people to live life to the fullest is what I'm just trying to do here. And no matter how radical and outside the box my ideas may be. But last thing I want to do on this show, don't want to take up too much more of your time. Trying to be time considerate here. But we can certainly talk as long as you like, or I can talk as long as you like me to talk on this show. But I do have a lot of thoughts for the new year, a lot of goals and aspirations, and I would share some of them with you. I mean, obviously, I talk quite a bit about this podcast and what direction it needs to go. I thank you so much, because it does appear to be coming. There's getting to be a lot more hits and a lot more listens to on this show than the last few months, and I think the only way forward is up. But then there is, speaking of community and relationship, there is a desire in my heart to bring guests on and to have conversations with them, which would dramatically change the format of this show. But I think it would be, I think the whole thing would be more satisfying to me and to the audience in the end. And I don't really know how to do that, and I kind of feel like sometimes I don't really have the time to do that. My dream is to make this into like something that's kind of Joe Rogan-esque, but not quite as long, and only once a week or so. I'm probably talking about an hour and a half to 2 hours just talking to people, bullshitting with them, as it were, about their lives and what they're into, and can talk about all sorts of various issues as they come up. I'd really like that for this show, but there does seem to be a lot of complications as far as getting people on and how long are they willing to stay, and usually the traditional podcasting, their pay is their ability to talk about themselves and plug what they're doing. There's usually not any money exchanged, so I don't know exactly how that would work. And then I've also, of course, talked about, like, I want to be able to explain my faith and what I feel is like some of the wisdom that I've had, that I've discovered here in the last year or year and a half. Like, I understand the Bible and I understand Christianity and relationship with Jesus in an entirely different way than I did 5 or 10 years ago or even 30 years ago. It was an eye-opening experience, and while I admit that I still don't have all the answers to everything, I think it's a very deep understanding that does not get discussed in a lot of churches, and I don't think that a lot of church leadership is necessarily interested in going that deep with parishioners. It's kind of like they have to keep things at a surface level in order to keep people somewhat interested in what they're saying, and that's part of the reason why I've kind of been gotten to be against organized religion in recent years. And so I would really like to be able to put my thoughts on paper, maybe write a book on that. I tried to write works of fiction in the past, and those haven't worked out so far. I may try to put them out there again, but that's something that's very near and dear to my heart, and it's kind of like a thinking man's Christianity. Lots of different odds and ends to it. But I was really enlightened by that 8-month sojourn through the Bible that I finished this last June, and I always wanted to talk about that. It looks like we're probably, like, I'm finishing up school this year. I'll probably be graduating in December and maybe getting a job after that. I'm not really entirely sure about my plans, because there's a lot of good things that have happened to me lately, and that I'm not really at liberty to really want to share here. But I don't know. There's things I want to do in the world. I kind of like to go back and own a business and possibly something recreationally, possibly something in the naturist industry that help that industry out. A lot of people say it's dying, which is a damn shame, because it's a big part of promoting humanity really, and living our lives to the full. If people can get past certain thoughts and ways they've been trained and such, what do they call it? Conditioning, I think it was. That's one thing that I might like to do. Did I just mention this or not? My wife and I are pretty serious about moving here, probably moving away from the Panhandle and being in some area north of the DFW Metroplex, where there's just, obviously there's more water and there's more wildflowers in the spring, and you obviously could still have some weather issues for sure, but there's a little bit more opportunity out there, and there's also more opportunity, of course, in the naturist sense, and which I'm really excited about, and that's an opportunity if all the circumstances come together and I'm able to do that. I would love to report on that here, by the way. One thing that I think is kind of humorous, and I'll probably end the show on this here, is humorous to some people and maybe not so humorous for others, but I have all these ideas and all these things I like to do, but I have been giving consideration for a little while now about, as you know, well, first of all, let me back up here a little bit. This show is called It's a Frankly Hairy Podcast, and I suggest that we're doing this from a place called The Forest. Now, The Forest is essentially a loose analogy for my body hair. I'm a pretty hirsute guy. I have hair all over. I was pretty popular. In fact, it actually kind of started in high school. I think most of the girls they either liked it or they were entertained by this thing, and having hair on my chest and back and everywhere else and everything. But in 2004, I decided to shave my back because I was kind of getting involved. I was getting interested in the trends of that era. I was probably a little bit late. Supposedly, in some people's minds, I was a little bit late to that trend. So I shaved it in 2004, and I've been doing it about once a week ever since then. And then I get into this idea about just being me, being who I am, and and then of course the idea about naturism and body acceptance and everything. So there's been a consideration of like going back to just letting it grow out and being me again after almost 22 years. And I think that would be a good way to go, but there is some drawback to it. I mean, it's going to be kind of itchy coming in, and then there would probably be more hairs left around the house than there are now. I remember that time. And then if it's for some reason it doesn't work out, or I don't like it or something like that, it's a pain in the ass to shave off again. It took me something like 4 hours and a lot of razors to do it the first time. So that's just something that maybe you don't want to hear about, or maybe you find amusing or whatever, but I just thought I would share that with you. That's something that I've got on the table potentially for this year. If I can wing it and stuff, it would make more sense. Like, for example, if I try naturism, because then it looks weird for me to shave my back and shoulders and upper arms and then not shave my butt. Anyway. So there's a lot of considerations there. That is one of those situations, just being me, just being. And I'm trying to do that as well. I played around a lot with grooming, by the way, too, in recent years. I actually have a scar on my chest that I'm trying to treat conservatively and see if it will maybe not disappear, but will become less apparent. Because I don't know if I have to do some kind of surgery or some dermatological intervention. But I got that scar a few years ago because I was messing around with my grooming on my chest, because I was trying to make it, trying to make all the hairs even instead of just letting them grow out and be where they are now. It's not a problem. I still take my shirt off at the beach and the swimming pool and wherever it's allowed and everything. But it doesn't look right if I were to try like the 70s open shirt thing. So I'm trying to work on that as well. All these different projects, all these different things to do, and there's nothing wrong with that initiative, but then I'm trying to be myself as well. Anyway, I would tell you, no matter what you do, don't try to wear a shirt and then no pants wherever you happen to be, because that would look really weird. And that's just a little piece of advice there. But anyway, I'm going to close out this first show of the new year. I'm so glad that you were here with me today and enjoying a new year in the forest. Our forest, not just Frank's forest. It's our forest. And I'm so glad that you were here to listen and be a part of it. I'm looking at doing a bonus show that'll probably be out here in 2 or 3 days. Probably be a little shorter than this show, but because I have a platform, I have to give a commentary on certain things. And so look for that before next week's show is released. And so anyway, almost half an hour here. I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. As always, I implore you, call to action. Sharing is caring. Please share the show with everybody you talk to, wherever they may be, family, friends, whoever. Hit that subscribe button. Love to hear your comments. Would love to hear your even direct messages, but I don't get a lot of those. I think it goes back to that fear people have in making contact with new people, I think. So anyway, until then, this is Frank Weber of It's a Frankly Hairy podcast signing off from the forest. We'll see you next time. Love you. Bye.